Wouldn't you like to know what the richest people in the entire world teach their kids about how to become successful in life? Well, that's what the Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki book is all about. So we break down the 10 best ideas, and basically the story goes like this. He has two fathers, one of them has a PhD, the other never graduated even from 8th grade, and both earn substantial incomes, yet one always struggles financially, while the other is going to become one of the richest people in all of Hawaii. One is going to leave tens of millions of dollars to his family, and the other is going to leave bills to be paid. I'm Jake Ducey from JakeDucey.com, and here are the 10 best ideas to help you on the fast track to financial success. Big idea number 1, 2 paths of money. One of the reasons the rich get richer and the poor get poorer and the middle class struggles in debt is because the subject of money is taught at home, not in school. Most of us learn about money from our parents, and what can a poor parent tell their child about money? According to Robert Kiyosaki, not that much. Money is not taught in schools. Schools focus on scholastic and professional skills, but not financial skills. Our staggering national debt, according to Kiyosaki, is due in large part to highly educated politicians and government officials making financial decisions with little or no training on the subject of money. So we can take 2 paths: blindly trying to make enough to live, or learning how to actually create financial independence and gaining financial literacy. Money is one of the most powerful forms in the world, but what is even more powerful is financial education. Money comes and goes, but if you have the education of how money works, you can gain power over it and you can really begin to create wealth. So there's 2 paths. One is to actually dedicate yourself to financial IQ, to gaining financial intelligence, and the other is just, I hope and I pray for the best and I'll find a really good job. That one doesn't always work out. Big idea number 2, lack of money is the root of all evil. Yeah, you heard that right. Lack of money is the root of all evil. Kiyosaki grew up with both a rich dad and a poor dad. One dad would say the love of money is the root of all evil, and the other would say the lack of money is the root of all evil. For 90% of the population, being rich is too much of a hassle, so they invent a saying that goes like, I'm not interested in money. But why would you work 9 to 5 for 40 years if you weren't kind of sort of interested in money? Or they say things like, I'll never be rich, or I don't have to worry, I'm young, or when I make some money, then I'll think about the future. Or all of that overwhelms them so much that they say money is evil. Money is nothing. It used to be backed by gold, but it was taken off the gold standard in 1933, and it's literally debt because the rise of inflation, it deflates the dollar every single year. So money is really just a convenient medium of exchange that we can use so we have more options in life. We used to use cows. Back in the day, that was currency. You were rich if you had a bunch of cows. Imagine if your room was full of a bunch of cows. It'd be really hard. So we moved to coins. Then that gets a little bit difficult to transport. So then we moved to paper, then we got plastic. Now basically at the speed of light, you can press some buttons and you can get money from all around the world. So money is nothing. It's just a medium of exchange. It's when you attach to it so deeply, when you seek all of your identity for it, when you give up your health, when you give up your relationships for it, when you sacrifice for this object, then you're in trouble. The lack of money causes more problems than anything. Number 3, rich people have money work for them. I don't work for money. Money works for me. That's what Robert Kiyosaki's rich dad would say. But the poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. True learning takes energy and passion and burning desire. And when it comes to money, most people want to play it safe and they hope that they feel secure. So passion doesn't direct them, fear does. Most people, given more money, they only get into more debt. Simply because it's easier to learn to work for money, especially if your fear is the driving force to everything that you're doing. And according to Kiyosaki, just know that it's fear that keeps most people working at a job and keeps them in a state where they really lack money education. the fear of not paying bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn just a profession and hoping that everything works out. Most people become a slave to money, and then they get angry at their boss. That's because Kiyosaki says most people have a price, and they have a price because of the human emotions named fear and greed. First, the fear of being without money motivates us to work really hard, and then once we get that paycheck, greed or desire starts us thinking about all the wonderful things that we can buy, and then the pattern is set for life. The pattern of get up, go to work, pay bills, get up, go to work, pay bills, get up, go to work, pay bills. Their lives are run forever by fear and greed. And it doesn't offer us any opportunity. And even if we get more money, the cycle will just continue and we'll be in greater and greater debt. That is the rat race, because people are stuck working for money. They desire money for the joy they think it can buy. But the joy is not often in money, because that's really short-lived. And soon they need more money, they need more comfort, they need more things. So they keep working thinking that money's going to soothe all of their troubles, but money can't do that. And the sooner you forget about just needing the money, the easier your adult life will be. Keep using your brain, keep working for free so you learn the right things, and soon your mind will show you ways of making money far beyond what you could ever think of just getting paid. You'll see things that you didn't see before, opportunities right in front of your nose. Most people never ever see those opportunities because they're always looking just for money and security, so that's all they get. And the moment that you see a big opportunity, you're going to start seeing them for the rest of your life. And that's what Kiyosaki is telling us. Learn to step out of the rat race, to create opportunities that produce money for you without having to slave away for them for the rest of your life. And that's what Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad did. Big idea number 4. Know the difference between assets and liabilities and buy assets. Now, accounting is possibly the most boring subject in the world. I dropped out of accounting. It also could be the most confusing. But if you want to be rich long term, it could be the most important subject ever, according to his Rich Dad. The question is, how do you take a boring and confusing subject and teach it to us? And the answer is, we need to make it simple. Teach it first in pictures. So rule number 1, you must know the difference between an asset and a liability and buy those assets. If you want to be rich, this is all you need to know. And rule number 1, actually there's only one rule. Rich people acquire assets, and the poor and middle class acquire liabilities, but they think that they're assets. You know, we all have that place where we think, well, maybe I'll buy this, and then it ends up biting us in the butt. So what defines an asset is not words and numbers, because if you can't read the numbers, then you can't tell what a real asset is. And in accounting, it's not the numbers, but what the numbers are telling you. It's just like the words. It's not the words, but what the story is starting to tell you. So if you want to be rich, you've got to start to read the numbers and start to understand. So here's the difference between an asset and how a liability actually works. Because an asset puts money into your pocket, and a liability pulls that money right out of your pocket. And this is really all you need to know. If you want to be rich, simply spend your life buying and acquiring assets. And if you want to be poor and middle class, start spending all of your time getting liabilities. It's not knowing the difference that causes most of the financial struggle in the real world. Because there's a flaw in our thinking for so many of us. And the flaw is that we think money's going to solve our problems. More money often doesn't solve problems. In fact, it only accelerates the problem. Money only accentuates the cash flow pattern running in our head. So if your pattern is to spend everything you get, most likely you're only going to increase your debt or increase your spending if you increase your cash. Because students leave school without financial skills, and millions of educated people pursue their profession successfully, but then later in life they're struggling financially. Why is that? They work harder, but they don't get ahead. Because what's missing is the real education of how to actually spend money and what to do with it. So why do the middle class struggle? When their income goes up, expenses go up, but their assets don't increase, but their liabilities increase. So there's 2 words you have to know: assets and liabilities. Now forget what you might have learned in your accounting class, because we're going to define in a really simple term. An asset is anything that puts that money into your pocket. Remember that. A liability is anything that just pulls it out. Anything can be an asset or a liability. If you own a house, it can eat $1,000 a month out of you. Then it's a liability. And if you own a house and it brings in $1,000 a month when you rent it, then it's an asset. Assets are things like businesses and real estate, paper assets, things like stocks and things like bonds. And here's why the distinction is so important. Really try to focus on this. The poor only have expenses, and the rich buy assets, and the middle class buy liabilities, and they think their liabilities are assets. And after graduating, we're often following everybody's advice. We're told to get a job, which increases our income, but there's only so many opportunities with that. And as we get our job, we move into a bigger house, and then we want that BMW in addition to our Mustang, then we want our iPhone 7. And the problem with all of this is that we think we're acquiring assets when in reality we're acquiring liabilities. And because we have to pay for them every single month, the house, the car, the expensive phone. And in essence, unless you make that paradigm shift about what you do with your money, which is to start to acquire assets, no matter how much income you actually earn from your job, you'll just match it with more liabilities and expenses. Your friends might like the iPhone 4 or the iPhone 7 or whatever, and it might seem like you feel rich, but the reality is that you're not. And there's nothing wrong with a job. There's nothing wrong with spending. The key is just awareness, because our money is going to be in this place where we look down 20 years down the road and then we're like, wait, what happened to me? Because that's kind of the narrative that we're all living on, is this place where we're like, I don't know if I'm going to be okay in 10, 20, 30 years. So keep your job, but make sure you know where you're putting the money that you own, or else you start to run into this position where you're stuck 20, 30 years down the road. And yes, the goal eventually is to acquire enough assets so that we don't need our job either, because our assets will just pay us more than our job ever could every single month. Number 5, how can I afford that? Have you ever told yourself, I can't afford that, and then you gave up trying? Most people have that habit. And Rich Dad would tell Robert, how can I afford that? One is a statement and the other is a question. One lets you off the hook and the other forces you to actually think. Rich Dad would explain that by automatically saying, I can't afford that, your brain stops working. Asking the question, how can I afford that? Your brain is put to work. Now, that doesn't mean that you want to buy everything, but have you ever noticed that successful people are fanatics about exercising their minds? The most powerful supercomputer that we have in the entire world? The brain gets stronger every single day if you exercise it. So, you've got to start getting your brain working. That's what Rich Dad would say. The more I use my brain, the more money that I make. So it's not creative to say, I can't afford that. Besides, just simply quitting and saying that you can't afford something is nothing more than a sign of mental laziness. And that's the big difference. Kiyosaki says he had one dad who had the habit of putting his brain to sleep when it came to money matters, and the other had a habit of exercising his brain. If you can put this practice in through long-term focus, the result is you're going to grow financially strong while others are starting to grow weak. In fact, think of it like this. It's not much different than a person who goes to the gym to exercise on a regular basis versus someone who sits on the couch, lazy, watches TV, because laziness decreases both your health and your wealth. So start getting creative about how you can afford things. So start that right now. If you want to create wealth, Kiyosaki says right now, start developing the practice of saying, how can I afford that? Devise a plan, get creative, use your brain. Number 6, self-reliance attitude. Look, I think we can all attest to feeling let down or disappointed in our expectations, right? And we see a lot of retirees who are expecting to be taken care of, or they think, Social Security or retirement's going to be there, but things have fallen apart in our bad economy. And we can't expect a corporation or our boss or our government or anyone to take care of us. And even if you don't have money to start, you have to start educating yourself. Self-reliance is the cornerstone of a really fulfilled life. Even Ralph Waldo Emerson and our founding fathers preach self-reliance. But we've gotten away from it and we have to get back to it. Because in reality, the only real asset that you have is your mind. And it's the most powerful tool that you will ever have. I believe that each of us has a financial genius that's within us, but the problem is our financial genius lies kind of asleep, waiting to be called upon. So if you've ever got started with investing, even if you didn't really have the money, that's the first step. But our genius lies asleep because our culture has educated us in believing that the love of money is the root of all evil. And it's encouraged us to just focus on our profession and hopefully everything will just work out for us. But the reality is it's not. And Rich Dad says, if you want to create wealth in life, you have to start becoming self-reliant. You can't rely on anybody to create the success that you want in life. When you begin that, no matter where you are financially, you're setting yourself up for success. Number 7, get a little selfish. That's what Rich Dad says. If you want to get away from failure and you want to get away from mental laziness, and you want to be rich, you have to start thinking about yourself a little bit. And one of the biggest problems is that our parents and our friends and our society kind of speak into our ear and they try to tell us to conform and limit our potential. They say things like, stop thinking about yourself and why don't you think about others like us? And other such words that just kind of instill guilt and shame, and they suppress our true dreams of carving out the life that we want. So how do you beat that? Kiyosaki says, it's just a little bit of greed and selfish thinking. It's that radio station Wi-Fi FM, which stands for what's in it for me. And a person needs to just sit down. You need to sit down and say, what's in it for me if I actually become healthy, wealthy, and happy? Because without a little bit of greed, the desire for progress in life is really stunted. And our world progresses because we all have a desire for a better life. New intentions are made because we have a desire for something better. We go to school and we study hard because we want something better. So whenever you find yourself avoiding something that you know you should be doing, then the only question to ask is, how can this improve my life? Be slightly greedy. You deserve a great life. Now, this doesn't mean taking advantage of people. It just means that you're going to take yourself into account because you deserve to be free. You deserve to create success. You deserve to live life on your own terms. Number 8, start early, as in right now. If you're scared or don't think that you can become financially free, or if you're afraid of risk or worry, start now. Start early. That's what Rich Dad says. That's why banks recommend the habit of savings when you're young. If you start now, it's easy to be rich. It's said that one of the wonders of the entire world is compound interest. The purchase of the Manhattan Island is said to be one of the greatest skimp deals of all time. New York was purchased from the Native Americans for $24 in trinkets and beads. And I can't believe that we ripped them off so bad. You know, you might think something like that. But if that money had been invested at 8% annually, that money, $24, would be worth $28 trillion just to buy 1995. And that would have been enough to buy all of Manhattan and LA many times over. So that's the real lesson, is start right now if you want to be free. That's the power of compounding interest. Number 9, be proactive about your retirement. Cyril Brickfield, he was the former executive director of the American Association of Retired People. He reported that private pensions are in a state of chaos. First of all, 50% of the workforce today has no pension at all, and that alone should be a huge concern. And then the other 70 to 80% of that 50% have ineffective pensions that pay $55, $150, $400 a month. And in his book, Craig Carpel writes that he visited the headquarters of a major national pension consulting firm and met with a managing director who specializes in big, lush retirement plans for the top management. And when they asked her what people who don't have corner offices will be able to expect in the way of the pension income, brace yourself, she said with a huge smile, the silver bullet. What? She shrugged. If people discover that they don't have enough money to live when they're older, they can always blow their brains out with the silver bullet. And that's just for retirement. When medical fees and long-term nursing home care are added to the picture, the future is very dim. And in his book, he indicates that the nursing home fees run from $30,000 to over $100,000 a year. So I wonder why people are still saying that they just need to get to retirement. Get proactive now and secure yourself a comfortable nursing bed. That'd be nice, right? Last but not least, number 10, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, that's the biggest problem that so many of us face, that Rich Dad talks about, is that so many people remain poor and just, even if you don't like the term rich and poor, most people never achieve their real financial potential because they're afraid to fail. They're afraid of what other people think of them, and they don't want to mess up. But the ironic thing is, the consequence of living like that is that at the end of your life, you do fail. Because 9 out of 10 people die with less than $10,000 and virtually no financial assets. They're just hoping and praying that everything works out because they're like, well, I don't want to take a risk and start a business, or I don't want to take a risk and invest, or I don't want to take a percentage of my paycheck and instead of just spending it on things, I don't want to, put in the time to learn how to actually make my money work for me, because it's scary. None of us want to fail. But the reality is, just by failing alone, you get closer to success. And that's what Rich Dad would say every time he would fail. He would say, every time I fail, I'm closer to getting rich. Look, even Henry Ford went bankrupt some people say 3 times. Henry Ford, he created the most successful company ever. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fall. There's a reason that Richard Branson, the billionaire that created Virgin, the Virgin companies, there's a reason they're called Virgin. It's not because he was a sexual virgin. It was because he was a virgin at business. He was a 16-year-old dyslexic kid with a middle school education who started his own business. And he said, what should I call this? Virgin, I don't know what I'm doing, right? It's just about starting. So if you're scared, it's okay. Nelson Mandela said it best. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's when you're scared and you do something anyways. So you may feel fear, but start to practice courage. In conclusion, you've got a lot of great steps just from this short video that you can take. So many people never create success that they want, or what Rich Dad or Kiyosaki would say, they remain poor because they hear great valuable information and steps and they never take them. So I hope that this speaks to you. Comment below your favorite idea and which one you're starting on immediately. This is Jake Ducey from jakeducey.com. You can head to jakeshypnosis.com or jakeducey.com to get my free success hypnosis and start to program your mind the right way instead of all those crazy voices that we hear outside of ourselves about how we can't create what we want in life. Be sure to subscribe, press the bell notification, and you're going to get a lot more awesome content. See you soon.